Oh my gosh, it's another tank. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about one of the biggest things in springtime bass fishing, most popular trend every year, and that's going to be red baits. We're going to talk about why you need to be fishing red baits, what they mimic, why everyone does it, why it's such a thing in the springtime. It seems like every year that in the spring you can just go out and throw a red crankbait and you'll catch fish, or a red anything, red chatterbait, doesn't matter what it is, red lipless, all kinds of stuff. Everyone always just has red baits tied on and goes and fishes them. We're going to talk about why it works though, and why people do it, and whether you should do it on your body of water. This might not actually apply to you if these conditions that are specific for this crankbait or red baits in general don't happen on your body of water. But for the most part, it does across the country, and this is why red baits are so popular. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. So for starters, we're gonna break like the #1 myth in bass fishing is that red crankbaits mimic crawfish. Almost always, they do not mimic crawfish on your lake. The fish are not looking for red crawfish flying through the water column at 100 miles an hour. That's not something that crawfish regularly do. They walk very slowly on the bottom, and I've almost never seen a crawfish this bright red. So while there are some lakes that they do work, like Table Rock I know is a popular one, you can throw a wigglewort down there in a crawfish color, and if you fish it slowly enough on the bottom, it can mimic crawfish. There are lakes that 100% that does happen. Most places that you are fishing, they're not mimicking crawfish. They are honestly not mimicking anything. The main reason that everyone uses the red crankbaits in the springtime is because it's something that the fish can actually see. You'll notice with a lot of these red crankbaits, they'll have some type of black lines on them or some darker color on it, and all that's creating is contrast. So the red specifically, red with black is a very contrasting colors, so it stands out really well. Black and blue jig, again, that's a contrasting color. That's why it always works in dirty water. And another one is chartreuse and blackback. That one contrasts really well, stands out in dirty water. So theoretically, you could use any of those in the springtime and probably have success. The reason that everyone's using red baits in the springtime, up here in the north, it's usually the ice melt and the snow melts and it runs off into the lake. Down south, you'll get a lot of heavy spring rains. Whichever it is, you're gonna get a lot of runoff into these lakes in the springtime, and the soil up on the bank literally cannot handle all the water, so the mud will start washing down into the lake. Then your water will get dirty, or you might have dirty water because it's a grass lake typically, and the grass will die off in the winter, and it's not there to filter the water quality like it is in the summertime when you don't have as much rain, you don't have as much runoff, plus you have the grass to filter it. The water clears up in the summertime. This time of year, you get that stained water, you get that dirty water. It depends on how dirty it gets, but you need that dirty water to really have success with these crankbaits. When that water gets dirty like that, especially dirty water on a cloudy day, you'll get a lot of that. You'll get clouds, wind, rain or snow in the springtime as well while you're out there fishing. All of that makes it very hard for a fish to find a bait. If you were to throw a natural colored bait down there, even a green pumpkin something or a bluegill colored crankbait, those fish are going to have a hard time finding it even if it's right in front of their face, because that water's so dirty. And a lot of times these fish are sight feeders. They do use their lateral line as well. But if you have both, you have a crankbait that has a little bit of wobble to it, it'll put off that vibration so this fish can find it, and then they'll actually be able to see the crankbait as it's coming through the water, and you'll land more too because they actually have a target they can hit. So that instead of them trying to swipe at something that they're just feeling go through the water, they can physically see that thing, they'll get it in their mouth, and you can get a good hook set and get them in the boat. So that's the main reason that everyone uses red crankbaits in the spring. If you never get dirty water, if your lake handles runoff really well and it stays clear, if you have fish that can find your bait no problem, you might not need to use a red crankbait. But I promise you, in the springtime every year, that red crankbait bite is excellent, especially if you have some dirty water. And to prove that, we actually did some fishing throwing this bait around. So now let's head out on the water. We're gonna show you how to fish this red crankbait, and hopefully we'll catch a couple fish along the way. So now we talked about how effective red crankbaits and other red baits can be in the springtime, why you need to be throwing them, and the reasons behind it. Let's go ahead and throw one around, see if we can catch a couple fish. We're in the very early stages of spring up here in Pennsylvania. Water temp is 45 degrees, and we're gonna try and catch us a couple fish on a nice little flat-sided red crankbait here. So this is a 6 cents flat finesse F4 in boiled crawfish. One of my favorite little baits right here. It has that circuit board lip, just a really good crankbait. It has a weight transfer system, perfect for this colder water. Got it rigged up on a Cashin core crankbait rod, the 7-foot medium heavy, perfect square bill rod, and a Shimano Corrado 200K with 12-pound test fluorocarbon on it. We're gonna toss this thing around. We have some stained water. It's not as dirty as I thought it would be this time of year, but it definitely has some stain to it, and that is the key with the red crankbait. If this water was actually clear, I probably wouldn't even throw a red crankbait. But it's dirtier than it usually is in this lake, even though it's not as dirty as I thought it would be. So anytime you got a little stain in the springtime, whether it's from rain, whether it's from runoff, whether it's from whatever it could be, a lot of times it's because the grass dies off and it has nothing to filter the water. This is usually covered in grass back here. I can actually fish a square bill crankbait because there's not that much grass back here right now. And the creek feeds in the back here. So that helps dirty the water, and it'll push those fish shallow as that water warms up and they start to be able to get that warmth up shallow as we talked about. So let's chuck this thing around and see if we can catch a couple. There we go. Ugh. He break off? Came off. I was really confused there for a second. All right, so red crankbait success. We finally got us one. Let's grab him before he flops to death. We were able to get us one on the red crankbait right there. I was fishing this brush pile. We're gonna go ahead and let him go before he's out of the water for too long. But I was fishing this brush pile that's right here underneath the water, and I bounced that red crankbait through there like 2 or 3 times. And I knew that brush pile felt good, that there would be a fish in there. I just had to keep fishing it. And with the stain in the water, sometimes they have a hard time finding the bait. So that's why the red crankbait helps. And I just happened to pull it at the right angle and he could not resist it. So while there is a lot of like bluegill and crappie, I'm seeing them on my live scope in this area, so there's food for them. There's no way that fish actually thought this was a bluegill or a crappie. It's just a bait that they can find and something easy for them to see. He probably didn't even see the bait. He probably just felt it coming through the water, and that's what got him to bite. So we're gonna get back to fishing. Hopefully we can find us a bigger one than that. I know there's some big ones ready to eat this crankbait. That's a big one. That's a giant. That's a giant. That's the one we've been looking for. Oh, come on. There we go. Again, got that stained water, and that might have been the only bait she would have been able to find. It allows you to cover water in that stained water. The other option would be to tie on like a black and blue jig, fish really, really slowly in these areas. Well, this time of year, you're not gonna get many bites, so I like to cover a little bit of water if I can. And some of the red bait options are like crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, chatterbaits even. There's a bunch of them out there that you can fish that allow you to cover water and still get fish like that, throwing a red crankbait. So we're gonna get back to it. I think we got one more big one in us. So let's see if we can find us another one. Oh my gosh, it's another tank. He's not as big as the other one, but I'll still count it. It's okay. I won't be upset about catching him. Come here, buddy. I will never get sick of that red crankbait bite. I absolutely love it every single spring. It's one of my favorite ways to catch fish. I mean, it's just so much fun. They rip the rod out of your hand. Usually they're big because you get the pre-spawn females that move up first. They will actually move up before the males. You will catch a lot bigger fish in the very early pre-spawn, and then as you get closer to the spawn, you'll notice a lot more males show up. So I love just crushing them on that red crankbait. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you want to see a video on some other baits you should be throwing throughout the month of March to catch fish just like this, go ahead and check this video out right here. We're back on the water. I can't believe it. Spring came early and I am having a blast already this year, catching a bunch of big old bass like this. Had an awesome day fishing today. Hit that subscribe button down below if you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you on the next one.